utility that will serve the people and this country well in the future. Thank you.
Call Deputy Kevin Humphreys.
Thank you, Chair. And Deputy Coffey, certainly Dublin people don't have to be reminded about the need for Irish water. In recent periods, up to 3 times, Dubliners had no water for long periods, and once over a long period over Christmas. We need to ensure the security and the safety of supply, and that's really what Irish water is about. We've seen a chronic lack of investment over the last 20 years, and Deputy Coffey pointed out very well about P-Powers, e-voting. He forgot to mention Bertie's Vanity Bowl. Deputy McGrath was here earlier on criticising about investment. I wonder, when he was doing his grubby little deal with the Taoiseach, Bertie Ahern, to keep him in power, where was the investment into water for the Dublin area? It's completely wrong for Fianna Fáil's motion criticising overspend in Irish water, because no facts have been put out to back that up. All the documents provided by the Environment Committee on Tuesday shows we are setting up a national utility with costs that are benchmarked below the international norm. There has been an awful lot of heat and noise about this, much of it stemming from Fianna Fáil, what I call as fake outrage. Some of the key points we need to be made. When Bord Gáis briefed the Environment Committee in November 2012 on the establishment of Irish water, there was not one question put to them by Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin or the independents on establishment costs. And you can look back, because I took time this morning to look back at the records of the committee. There wasn't one question put by the opposition parties in relation to that. Again, the Minister Fergus O'Dowd is present with us today, attended the Select Committee on the Environment in July 2013. The opposition again failed to raise with him the issue regarding the establishment of costs of Irish water, which you now kind of say is, oh, this is the main reason we're arguing. Two clear opportunities at committee stage to raise the issue. Not once was it raised. Check your records. It should be noted that at the meeting, my colleague Patrick Coffey raised the issue with the Minister about the asset management register, and that was the first indication that the asset management register was raised. We have learned from the Environment Committee that is the major part of the spend by IBM, is to build up that asset register, which is so important. It's because it's a critical tool of directing further investments. Now, I want to come back to that later on. What we have seen is a failure of the opposition to use the opportunities available to them to raise questions about Irish water. As the record of the Dáil shows, I was the first deputy to raise the issue of the consultancy costs in Irish water by parliamentary question. I am glad the opposition reads my questions and builds on my work and follows them up themselves. The Fianna Fáil motion concludes with a call for 2 actions. The first is that Irish water be subject to the freedom of information, and that has been made clear by Brendan Howlin in November, that Irish water will be subject to freedom of information. As deputies will be aware, the bill is still going through the House. As part of the reform to the House, we brought in pre-legislative scrutiny on the Freedom of Information Bill at the Finance Committee. Myself and others repeatedly raised the need for Irish water to be subject to the FOI, and I am glad Minister Howlin has not only given that strong commitment, taken on the views of the backbenchers, and ensured that it will be retrospective. The opposition seems to be more interested in stunts than hard work of legislative scrutiny, of parliamentary inquiry through their committee system. First, Fianna Fáil calls on a national audit of the water system and a comprehensive investment programme. It may have escaped our notice, but that is exactly what Irish Water are doing, and have invested through their establishment at about a cost of 150 million. As I mentioned earlier, an asset management system is crucial to know the right places to invest and what must the costs of that.
Thank you,
Sorry, I just finished briefly on this. Is we've seen, since I've been in politics since 1999, continuous cuts of water supply in the Dublin area, numerous boil notices right across the country. And here we are with a failed opposition criticising a government that wants to do something about it. Well, I think they should go and take their failure home and withdraw the motions they put, the pointless motion they put forward.
Thank you, Deputy. I now call Deputy Darren Murphy. 5 minutes.
Cahill, look. Yeah, I think I would agree with previous speakers. I think that we really have to go back to the fundamental core of why we're here and what we're trying to achieve. The establishment of a national utility, a new one, is a massive undertaking. Certainly there's been mention of water shortages in Dublin and difficulties, and we know about in the west of Ireland and in Galway. And I think in Cork, on 2 occasions in the last 4 or 5 years, hugely densely populated areas were without water for well over a week. And I think certainly during that experience we learned a couple of very important lessons. Firstly, I think the Department of Environment and indeed government in general was pretty ill-equipped at the time. And that's not to make a party political point, because I think it remains ill-equipped actually to respond quickly to crisis. The delivery of water is still, and at the time was delivered by local authorities. And in a major incident, given we've so many local authorities, and while the people on the ground did an excellent job, I think we learned that the water supply we have in our country has been extremely underfunded for a long period, and that it needed a dramatic overhaul, which is now being conducted by the current government. The other thing we learned is that there is a very significant cost to providing water. And everybody who's watching this debate must realise that as taxpayers, they are already currently funding the cost of a very leaky, very inefficient and very expensive water system. And that cost comes out of their taxes in any event. And I would be very strongly of the view that, given that people will monitor and protect and use their water more efficiently, that the net savings to families through this process will be significant. Can I just say that if you were to have a spreadsheet or a list in front of you of all the semi-states in this country, Bord Gáis, I think, would certainly be in the very top in terms of efficiency, the personnel working for it, how it has transformed and provides a very efficiently run utility in the country. And I think, and I know they're based in Cork, but I think, having met over the years many senior people in Bord Gáis, I have been extremely impressed by their professional, particularly Bord Gáis networks. And I think we do have to have faith in a company which is I suppose the umbrella company for the new Irish Water, that they are the people that have the expertise and they really know what they're doing, because they have proven to us over the last number of years that in providing another utility they know what they were doing. The issue of the leaky, creaking infrastructure that they are inheriting, I think, is an argument we have in many different areas around the country. Before you can invest in repair, you have to bring in the revenue to do it. This isn't a chicken and egg situation. This is clearly having a horse before the cart. And I think that is why the new utility, having been asked to be put in place over such a narrow and short period, which again, one of the great criticisms of how politics functions in Ireland is the slow pace and way we do things. And I think that's a fairly accurate criticism of how we respond. In fairness to the current government, for a variety of reasons, it has been forced to do things much quicker. And I think, in this instance, in a very, very short period, we will be putting in place a new national utility that will provide secure water supply and safe water supply. Because, again, back to Cork in 2009, at that time, the Mercy hospitals, CUH hospitals, they were bringing in tankers of water. And we're hearing from other deputies what has happened in Dublin and indeed Galway. There is nothing more fundamental to life than water, and I'm not just talking about drinking it, I'm talking about surgeries, operating theatres that were under threat of not functioning, and of course having access for the fire services. So this needs to be done. It needs to be done quickly, and it needs to be done efficiently. I'm not expert enough to say whether the money that's been spent to date has been perfectly well spent, but I think I do know enough about Bord Gáis to know that their record to date has been exceptionally good, and it will probably be a number of years before we look back in this experience and say whether or not the costs have been justified. My suspicion is that we will look back and say that was a remarkable achievement by Irish Water, Bord Gáis, and showed great foresight and determination from the Minister for the Environment to have confidence in a company with such a track record.
Thank you very much, Askan Corlin. I think if you were to put a pipeline in place and you were to put the political activity, the media activity and the hysteria that has surrounded this subject over the last couple of weeks, and if there was a filter at the end of it, I'm not so sure that there would be any great substance at the end of the filter. The one word that comes out of it constantly is the word consultant, and I think the whole country got upset at the idea of 50 million euros being spent on consultants. I think everyone had a reaction, including politicians, that we envisaged something from an era that's far gone, which is 50 million euros worth of reports sitting on a shelf someplace. That's not the case, and I think that Deputy Coffey gave a fantastic speech earlier on where he highlighted the nub of what this is about. There are going to be systems in place rather than reports in place, and the largest economic provider here is going to be IBM, and they're going to give us a framework and a network whereby we're going to understand the quality of water, the network that exists, where the leaks are, how you go about fixing them, and also you're going to have a semi-state company which is going to raise funds on the private market off balance sheet from the state for the purposes of employing people to fix the leakage that exists at the moment. There are many benefits to Uisce Éireann, and I don't want to be ultra-partisan by any stretch of the imagination on this. And the origins of it are, I think we've all agreed that this is a good thing nationally, but unfortunately it took the Troika to come into the country and to drill it into the Memorandum of Understanding as to how our country gets out with a bailout, as to how this comes about. We're going to have benefits out of it, but there's going to be some hardship involved in it as well. I think Deputy Murphy rightly pointed out that the net effect of this will be that there will be savings. Environmentally, there will be savings. Economically, as a nation, there will be savings on this. And I think that we will be doing the right thing in a modern world. But I would like to say that this is the crux of the matter for me. Hard-pressed families don't need another bill coming in the door, which is excessive. And I think particularly people that have large households and families, that have negative equity mortgages, that have 2 jobs in a house and have constant ongoings, they don't need a large excessive bill. And I would press upon the Minister here today as well that the quota of water that needs to be given to people needs to be more than adequate. And the costing that's done after that, it's an abusive mechanism. I think we all find, if you look at how the average in Europe used of potable water compared with Ireland, we are unfortunately abusing the system at the moment, whether it's brushing your teeth with the tap on or people taking prolonged showers or whatever else that goes with it as well. We also need to acknowledge that there were mistakes made in this, and the openness and transparency that it was conducted with, I'm not very happy with. But I am very pleased that Minister Howlin has said that freedom of information will be part of the mechanism by which you can scrutinise this. I would also like to compliment Deputy Humphreys here beside me and Deputy Michael McCarthy and the other government TDs that raised this as an issue that we need openness and transparency. I'm fully aware of the fact that Bord Gáis Networks, who I have had many dealings with over the last number of years, particularly in relation to Shannon LNG project in North Kerry and Ballylongford, they have the interest of the Irish people at stake. And when you talk about the idea of 50 million being spent that government ministers supposedly weren't aware of or that people weren't on top of, there is a perception out there, holy God, could this have gone out the back door? Could people have been paid money that they weren't truly rewarding of? That culture is gone. That doesn't exist. This is money for services that were provided for the betterment of Irish water, for the Department of the Environment, for the Irish state and the Irish nation. I think we have gone through a process now where we've filtered the noise and the nonsense, and we've got down to the crux of the matter. If there are questions that need to be answered, such as the county manager's allocation of 5.5 to 5.7 million euros at the moment, well, I'd like to see those answered as well. I think Deputy Cowan rightly pointed out that Fianna Fáil are in favour of the idea of Uisce Éireann, and within that we need to have the transparency as to how it was set up, why it was set up, and ultimately how much it's going to cost the people of the country. Everything that has been done within the guidelines of EU tendering. So there's been nothing underhand at all. I would recommend that from now on, anybody that is appointed to any board within the government supervision, that they have expertise. If they are politically party affiliated, they should always be somebody that brings substance to the table at all times. There's been a charge made against us on that front, and I think that it's something that I would like to see completely eradicated from Irish politics. And the last thing is the bonus culture that has emanated again. I can understand that there was a tight time frame put in by the Troika, and there was an incentive there by people, but I don't want to see anybody being bonus enhanced. Do your job, get paid for your job, and that's the way that the country should work. Thank you very much.